In the pursuit of creating the ultimate warrior, some experiments have crossed the line between science and horror. These are the stories of soldiers who were meant to become the best versions of themselves, pushed to the limits of human endurance and beyond. But what happens when these experiments go wrong? When those who were meant to be the perfect soldiers are broken instead? In this video, we'll take you through 8 spine-chilling cases of military experiments gone horribly wrong. From mind-altering drugs to extreme physical manipulation, these experiments were supposed to forge superhuman warriors. But the aftermath was far more devastating than anyone could have imagined. We'll start with the least terrifying of these cases and work our way up to the most shocking and horrifying of them all. Prepare yourself for a journey into the darkest corners of military history, where the quest for perfection ended in unimaginable consequences. Let's begin. Number 8. We begin this list with a chilling example that may not be immediately violent, but is deeply unsettling. Our first entry is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, induced by stressful combat simulations, an experiment that has been ongoing since the 1980s. In an effort to prepare soldiers for the worst combat scenarios, the military developed high-stress simulations designed to replicate the horrors of war. Soldiers endured extreme psychological pressure, facing simulated ambushes and life-threatening situations for extended periods. The goal was to toughen them up, but it backfired. Instead of strengthening their resilience, the simulations pushed soldiers to the brink, leaving them with severe PTSD. Many returned home with crippling anxiety, flashbacks, and nightmares. Some even took their own lives. What was meant to create perfect soldiers instead shattered their mental health. This case ranks 10th on our list because it wasn't an immediate visible harm. It was the slow, devastating toll on the mind, a silent destruction that still haunts many soldiers today. Number 7. Now, as we move down the list, the experiments become darker. Our 7th entry focused on psychological destruction. But what happens when the military alters a soldier's very body to create the ultimate warrior? In the 1940s, Nazi Germany conducted the enhanced soldier experiment to create a super soldier. Soldiers were subjected to brutal physical and mental modifications, including performance-enhancing drugs like methamphetamines, to keep them awake and aggressive. The goal was to create soldiers who could fight endlessly, feel no pain, and be utterly loyal to the cause. However, the results were catastrophic. The soldiers didn't become superhumans. They became broken shells. The drugs and constant strain led to psychological and physical damage, some even dying from the modifications. The experiment didn't create the perfect soldier, it destroyed the men involved. This tragic failure leads us to our 6th entry, where things only get darker. Number 6. As we move further down the list, we now face a terrifying chapter in military experimentation. At number 6, we explore the nerve gas testing on soldiers. In these experiments, the US military exposed soldiers to deadly nerve agents like VX and sarin to study their effects. Soldiers were often subjected to inhaling these toxic gases, sometimes unknowingly, to observe how quickly the toxins took effect. The results were horrifying. Soldiers suffered convulsions, paralysis, and in some cases, death. While some survived, many were left with permanent neurological damage, including memory loss and physical disabilities. These tests were meant to prepare soldiers for chemical warfare, but instead, they turned them into victims of it. This ranks 6th due to the intentional exposure of soldiers to such deadly agents. As we continue, the experiments become even darker. Number 5. As we move further down the list, we now encounter an experiment that takes us beyond the physical realm into the terrifying manipulation of the mind. Number 5 is the Bluebird Project. a secretive and disturbing initiative by the CIA during the Cold War. The US government, fearing the possibility of communist influence and the use of mind control during interrogations, launched Project Bluebird, which later evolved into the infamous MK Ultra program. The goal was to develop techniques that could manipulate the human mind, specifically for espionage and interrogation purposes. The military and intelligence agencies wanted to create super soldiers, or individuals who could be controlled, manipulated, or brainwashed without their knowledge. One of the most horrifying aspects of the Bluebird Project was the use of psychoactive drugs, including LSD, which were administered to soldiers without their consent. These drugs were tested to see how they affected a soldier's behavior, memory, and decision-making capabilities. The results were disastrous. Soldiers who participated were subjected to severe psychological distress, including paranoia, hallucinations, and long-term mental damage. The military's attempt to control the minds of soldiers turned into a nightmare, as many of those who underwent the tests were left with lasting psychological trauma, and some even became dangerously unstable. The very tools meant to create the perfect soldiers, control, obedience, and resilience, turned out to destroy the minds of those they were tested on. This experiment ranks fifth for its sheer violation of personal autonomy and the brutal impact on the soldier's mental health. The mind is fragile, and in the search for a perfect soldier, the consequences were catastrophic. And as we move forward, the experiments become even more chilling. Number 4. At number 4, we explore how the military sought to enhance soldiers through drugs and hormones during the Cold War. The US military tested anabolic steroids, amphetamines, and other performance-enhancing drugs on soldiers, aiming to boost strength, stamina, and aggression. While the drugs did make soldiers stronger and more focused, the long-term effects were disastrous. Soldiers suffered from extreme aggression, addiction, and severe health problems like heart issues and liver damage. Many became mentally unstable, and the substances left permanent damage. This experiment ranks fourth for the profound physical and mental toll it took on the soldiers. What was meant to create better soldiers instead left them broken, setting the stage for even darker experiments ahead. Number 3. At number 3, we dive into the sensory deprivation experiment, a disturbing test of the human mind. The military subjected soldiers to complete isolation in dark, soundproof rooms to simulate extreme combat conditions. The goal was to see how they would handle stress, but the results were devastating. Without any sensory input, the soldiers quickly experienced hallucinations, paranoia, and severe anxiety. Many were left with permanent psychological damage, including emotional breakdowns and lasting trauma. What was meant to build mental resilience only shattered their minds. And as we continue, the experiments get even darker. Number 2. As we move down the list, we now confront a terrifying chapter in military history. Radiation testing on soldiers, 1940s to 1960s. During this period, the US military exposed soldiers to nuclear blasts to assess the effects of radiation. Soldiers were positioned close to explosions with minimal protection, believing it was a controlled experiment. What they didn't know was the extent of the risks. These soldiers, many of whom were sent to areas near Ground Zero, were exposed to lethal levels of radiation. The results were devastating: cancer, organ failure, and death. While they were meant to withstand the blast, the radiation turned them into victims instead of the perfect soldiers they were intended to be. This experiment ranks second, a chilling reminder of the extreme measures taken in the name of military science. Until now, we've explored some of the most horrifying experiments in military history. Soldiers subjected to mind control, radiation, and chemical agents, pushed to the edge of human endurance. We've seen their bodies and minds broken, sacrificed in the name of creating the perfect soldier. But what could be more terrifying than all that? Number 1. At number 1, we uncover the darkest chapter of them all, the Nazi Super Soldier Project. During World War II, the Nazis were obsessed with creating the ultimate warrior, one who could withstand the horrors of war and perform feats of unimaginable strength and endurance. Under the direction of Heinrich Himmler and the SS, the Super Soldier Project was born. The idea was to enhance the physical and mental capabilities of soldiers through a combination of drugs, genetic manipulation, and brutal training. The Nazis experimented on their soldiers using performance-enhancing drugs like methamphetamines, which were widely distributed to boost aggression, energy, and stamina. But this wasn't just about strength. Scientists were also exploring ways to modify the human body through surgery and hormone treatments to make soldiers faster, stronger, and more resilient. However, the results were nothing short of catastrophic. The soldiers who underwent these enhancements became unstable, suffering from psychological breakdowns, violent outbursts, and severe physical deterioration. The drugs and extreme treatments left many broken, and those who survived were often left mentally scarred, their bodies pushed beyond human limits. In some cases, the soldiers were so damaged that they were rendered incapable of fulfilling any military duties, a tragic irony given the intended goal of creating a superior fighting force. The Super Soldier Project ranks first because of its sheer inhumanity. The experiments weren't just about improving soldiers, they were about creating monsters. The soldiers who participated in these experiments were treated as tools, discarded after being pushed beyond their limits. What was supposed to be the creation of the perfect soldier turned out to be one of the darkest chapters in the history of military experimentation.